Hey, welcome to the Explainer. So, you're gearing up for that AWS AI Practitioner certification, right? Well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we are going to break down the absolute core concepts of machine learning. We're talking about building your knowledge from the ground up, piece by piece. So, when you walk into that exam, you're not just ready, you're totally confident. So, let's just jump right in with the big one. How do machines actually learn? I mean, it's the question that's at the heart of all of this, isn't it? And, it's not some kind of magic trick. It's actually a really cool set of techniques, different ways of thinking, really, that let a machine spot patterns and start making smart decisions all on its own. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. All right, here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the big picture, the main learning paradigms. Then we'll dive deep into supervised learning, followed by unsupervised and semi-supervised. After that, we'll get into some more advanced stuff, touch on this really cool idea called RLHF, and then pull it all together with a blueprint to help you ace that exam. Okay, let's kick things off with the absolute workhorse of machine learning, supervised learning. And honestly, the name kind of gives the game away. Think of it like a student with a teacher. The machine gets supervised because we're feeding it a ton of data that's already been labeled with the right answers. So the whole idea here, the absolute core of it, is that we're giving the model a giant data set of examples. And for every single example, we're showing it the input and the correct output. The flashcard analogy is perfect here. It's like giving the model a massive stack of flashcards. On one side, you have the question, and on the other, the correct answer. The model's job is to study these cards over and over until it learns the relationship, the pattern, between the question and the answer. We call this a mapping function. The ultimate goal? To get so good at it that it can ace the test and correctly answer questions it has never, ever seen before. Now, inside supervised learning, things basically split into two main jobs, two types of problems you're trying to solve. You've got regression and you've got classification. Regression is all about predicting a number, a continuous value. You're asking how much or how many. Think predicting a house price or a stock price. Classification, on the other hand, is about putting things into buckets, predicting a category. You're asking what kind or which group. So, is this email spam or not spam? Is this picture a cat or a dog? So think, regression equals numbers, classification equals categories. Simple as that. Okay, let's make this real. Let's talk regression in action. Picture this. You've got a bunch of data on people's heights and their corresponding weights. This is your labeled training data. So you might fire up Amazon's SageMaker and feed this data to a regression algorithm. The model crunches through it all and learns the relationship, right? It figures out that generally, as height goes up, weight goes up. Now for the cool part. You can give it a new piece of information, a height it's never seen, like 1.6 meters. And you ask it, okay, model, what's your best guess for the weight? And it'll use what it learned to predict a specific number, like 60 kilograms. It's not picking from a list, it's predicting a precise point on a continuous scale.
And on the flip side, we have classification. The spam filter is the perfect example. We all know it, right? You train a model on tons and tons of emails that you've already marked as either spam or not spam. The model starts to learn the telltale signs, weird phrases, suspicious links, all that junk. Then a brand new email comes into your inbox. The model takes a look and makes a decision. It goes in the spam bucket or the not spam bucket. That's a classic two-option problem, which we call binary classification. But it gets more complex. You could have multi-class classification, like telling a picture of a cat from a dog from a bird. Or even multi-label, where one thing can belong to multiple categories at once. Think about a movie. It could be action, comedy, and sci-fi all at the same time.
Okay, listen up, because this is super important, especially for your AWS exam. You absolutely have to know this. You never, ever use all your data for training. You have to split it up. Think of it like this. The biggest chunk, maybe 70%, is your training set. This is the textbook the model studies from. Then you have a smaller validation set. This is like the practice quizzes you take along the way. You use it to tweak your study habits, or in the model's case, its parameters, and to make sure you're not just memorizing the answers. That's what we call overfitting, when the model knows the training data perfectly but can't handle new questions. Finally, you have the test set. This is the final exam. It's completely new material the model has never seen, and you only use it once at the very end to see how well it really learned. And the great thing is, in the AWS ecosystem, services like Amazon SageMaker can handle all this splitting for you, which is a huge help. In a perfect world, our data would be clean, organized, and ready to go. But we don't live in a perfect world. Data is often messy, and that's where feature engineering comes in. It's part art, part science, and it's all about transforming your raw data into something a model can actually learn from. I mean, think about it. A model doesn't understand a birth date like January 1st, 1990. It's just text. But if you, using your human brain, create a new feature called age from that birth date, suddenly you have a powerful number the model can use. That's feature engineering. And honestly, this can be the hardest part of a project, which is why having tools like AWS SageMaker Data Wrangler to help you clean and prep your data is a real game changer. All right, so we've been talking a lot about having nice, labeled data, our perfect set of flashcards. But what happens when you don't have that? What if you just have a massive pile of data with, well, no labels at all? This is a really common scenario, and it's where our next two paradigms, unsupervised and semi-supervised learning, really come into their own. So, with unsupervised learning, we're basically letting the model off its leash. There's no teacher, no answer key. We just point it at a huge pile of data and say, go figure it out, find the hidden patterns. The algorithm acts like a detective, sifting through everything and looking for things that are naturally similar to each other, grouping them into what we call clusters. But here's the crucial part, and you need to remember this. The model doesn't know what those groups mean. It finds the clusters, but it's our job, as the humans in the loop, to look at those groups and say, I see. This is a group of one type of customer, and that's another. The machine finds the structure, we provide the meaning.
Let's use a classic example, customer segmentation. Imagine you're a big online store. You've got purchase data from millions of people sitting in your Amazon S3 data lake. But you have no idea who these people are, just what they bought. So you run an unsupervised clustering algorithm on it. The algorithm churns away and comes back with, say, 3 distinct groups. And now you do your detective work. You look at group 1 and see they're buying cheap noodles and energy drinks. Probably college students. You look at group 2, diapers, baby food, coffee, lots of coffee, definitely new parents. Group 3 is all organic vegetables and tofu. You get the picture. The model found the groups, you figured out who they are, and now, bam, you can create super targeted marketing campaigns for each one.
Okay, so what if you're somewhere in the middle? Labeling data, as we've said, is a ton of work. It costs time and money. Maybe you can only afford to label, say, 5% of your data. Are you stuck? Nope. This is where semi-supervised learning comes in, and it's a really clever best of both worlds approach. It lets you take a tiny amount of high-quality labeled data and use it to bootstrap labels for your entire massive unlabeled data set. It's all about being practical and getting the most bang for your buck. So, how does this magic actually work? Well, it's a pretty neat process. First, you take that small bit of data you've carefully labeled and you train a model on it. It's not going to be an amazing model, right? It's only seen a little data, but it's a start. Then step 2, you take this starter model and you let it loose on all your unlabeled data. It goes through and makes its best guess for each one, creating what we call pseudo-labels. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. Finally, you combine your original perfect labels with all these new pseudo-labels, and now you have a gigantic labeled data set to train a brand new, much smarter model. It's exactly like using a tiny seed of knowledge to grow an entire forest of understanding. It's super powerful. All right, let's shift gears a bit. Now we're going to get into some of the really cutting-edge stuff. These are the techniques behind some of the most mind-blowing AI you see in the news today. We're talking about AI that can master complex games or the large language models that everyone is talking about. So let's dive into reinforcement learning and self-supervised learning. So reinforcement learning, or RL, is completely different from what we've seen so far. This is all about learning by doing, basically trial and error. The classic example is an AI agent, think of it as your player, in an environment like a video game maze. The agent has no instructions. It just starts trying things. If it takes a step towards the exit, you give it a point, a positive reward. If it walks into a wall, you take a point away, a penalty. And it does this over and over and over again, millions of times, until it figures out the best strategy to get the highest possible score. That strategy it learns is called a policy. It's the agent's internal rulebook for what to do in any situation. And if you want to play with this on AWS, you've got to check out AWS Deep Racer. You literally get to train an RL model to drive a little race car. It's awesome. Now, this next one, self-supervised learning, is, well, it's just brilliant. It's what has made modern large language models possible. Remember the big problem with supervised learning, that you need humans to label everything? Well, self-supervised learning has this genius workaround. The model basically creates its own homework assignments from the unlabeled data. Now, don't get this confused with unsupervised learning. It's different. The model is still solving a task with inputs and correct outputs, but, and this is the amazing part, it generates those correct outputs itself from the data without any human help. So you're probably asking, how on earth does it do that? Well, it uses something called a pre-text task. It sounds fancy, but the idea is simple. Imagine you feed the model the entire text of the internet.
The model then creates a game for itself. It might take a sentence like, the cat sat on the, and its job is to predict the missing word, which is mat, or it predicts the next word in a sentence. By doing this simple fill-in-the-blank game, literally billions of times, the model is forced to learn language, grammar, context, facts about the world, everything. This massive learning phase is called pre-training, and it's how we get the incredibly powerful foundation models that you can access through services like Amazon Bedrock. Okay, for our last big topic, we're going to look at a technique that pulls together a few of the things we've just talked about. It's called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF for short. And this is the secret sauce that makes models like chatbots actually useful and safe. It's how we align them with our values, making sure they're helpful and not going off the rails. So here's the problem. A large language model might be able to write a grammatically perfect sentence, but how do we teach it to be helpful or polite or funny? These are subjective human ideas. You can't just put "be helpful" in a dataset. This is what RLHF solves, and it does it by training a second AI called a reward model. Think of this reward model as an AI judge that has learned to think like a human. We train it to understand our preferences so it can then give the main AI the rewards and penalties it needs to learn how to behave in a way we find useful. Okay, pay close attention here. This four-step process is a huge concept for your exam. So step 1, you start with a pre-trained model and you fine-tune it on a small set of really good human-written examples. This is called supervised fine-tuning. Step 2, this is the key part. You have the model generate a few different answers to a question. Then you have real humans rank those answers from best to worst. You do this thousands of times and you use this data to train that special reward model, the AI judge. Step 3, now you use your AI judge to score the main model's outputs in real time. This becomes a reinforcement learning problem where the model tries to get the highest score possible from the AI judge. And finally, step 4, the whole thing can be automated to keep the model aligned over time. It's a really elegant system. Whew, okay, that was a lot, I know. But we've covered all the major paradigms, so let's pull everything back together and create a simple, clear blueprint for you. Seriously, think of this next slide as your ultimate cheat sheet for the exam. And here it is. This table puts it all in one place. You've got supervised, needs labeled data. Its goal is to predict something. Unsupervised, needs unlabeled data. Its goal is to find hidden groups. Reinforcement, learns by interacting with an environment to get a reward. Self-supervised, uses unlabeled data to create its own labels for training. And finally, RLHF uses human preferences to align a model with our goals. Honestly, if you can walk into your exam and explain the data and the goal for each of these 5, you are going to be in fantastic shape. And that's a wrap for this explainer. Look, learning all of this is obviously key to passing the certification, but it's so much more than that. You've just learned the fundamental ways that machines think and learn. This is a new lens to look at the world, a new toolkit for solving problems. So the real question is, now that you know how this all works, what problems do you want to solve first? The possibilities are pretty much endless.